Thomas here with Much Props, going to give you another how-to video. Last week I made a Mr. Knight mask from the TV series Moon Knight, and I mentioned that I thought it would easily be made into other superheroes. A lot of you suggested tons of great things for me to convert this template into, and as you saw from the video at the end, I already started and made another superhero from this exact same template. Now, I did have to make a couple of modifications to it, and I'll show you what I did to do those things. But I have made a Deadpool before, a Lego version of Deadpool, and even made his little Lego hands to go along with it. You can check out that video. I'll link it somewhere, wherever videos get linked. But I wanted to use that new template to make a more realistic one, and thought it would be pretty simple. So today we are going to make a more realistic Deadpool mask using a template from last week. So let's get to building. So instead of repeating all the same things again for this video, I thought it would just be better to recap on the base assembly and move on to the new modifications for this one. I pulled this video from my Mr. Knight mask that you can definitely go and watch and see a slower step-by-step of over on that video. Cut out the template, trace it on a 6mm foam and cut it out. Glue the edges with contact cement, close up the darts, follow the registration lines for each, and join the two halves together. Found a 3D model of Deadpool's head on a phone app that I use from time to time called Sketchfab. I'm going to use that as a reference for my build. So in case you've never noticed, Deadpool has this lump on the back of his head that I need to add to my mask. From what I've read about it, it's basically just Wade being lazy and not good at sewing and never properly fit it to his head. To add this to my mask, all I have to do is heat up both sides of the foam and push it out. You can use an object to help you to do this or just by hand. You want to work carefully so that you don't pull the seams apart. Hold it in position until it cools down, and now the lump's there permanently. I do this from time to time to help better shape parts once I've already assembled, and it can drastically change the way something looks. Instead of making eye covers to go over the top, I'm just gonna glue a seam line strip of foam around the eyes to make it look like the image. Before I can do that, I need to draw on where the seam lines will go. You can try and freehand this, but the sides are gonna be uneven. So my dude doesn't have wonky eyes. I'm gonna make a little pattern to go over the top with some painter's tape. Put it over the area, then draw out the design.
I put tape on the back to make it a little more sturdy as I was cutting out and not like pulling apart. Once I cut out the shape, I can trace it onto my material. I use the seam lines and registration marks to help me kind of guide the position of where it should go. To get the other side, I simply invert the pattern, just flip it inside out, and then trace it again. With the eyes in place, I go ahead and map out where the seam lines will go with my Sharpie also. For my fake seam lines, which will reinforce some of my actual seam lines, I am cutting out some small strips of 2mm EVA foam. To quickly and easily glue all of them up at one time, I put the sticky side of my painter's tape up and stick them to it. Then I can glue them all at once and also go ahead and contact cement the seams on that mask that I'm going to add. I quickly slather on the contact cement and have a little too much on the surface. One helpful use of scrap foam pieces is to use them like a squeegee to help remove the contact cement while it's still wet. Once both sides are dry, keep in mind this video is sped up quite a bit, you can stick your seams down. I make them a little longer on the edges so that I can tuck them on the inside and give that illusion that it's real. After they were all on, I cut about halfway through the foam with my hobby knife in the middle to make a small gap to mimic the sewn together look. I wasn't trying to add a texture here, I was just trying to help hide the unwanted seam lines a little with some Mod Podge. It makes it look a little smoother, fills small imperfections, and prevents any of those Sharpie marks from bleeding through onto my paint. I put on 2 layers for good measure. 2 coats of Plastidip. Since I use black Plastidip, all I have to do now is fill the parts around the eyes with red. I'm using some red Plattifex acrylic paint to get the job done. Since this mask is snug, I wanted to make sure that all the things that I painted over the foam were somewhat flexible so that my paint doesn't crack. Mod Podge, Plastidip, and this Plattifex all share that quality. It took me just 2 coats to get the desired coverage. You could definitely roll on a texture, add weathering, stretch fabric over the top of it if you wanted to. I just chose to keep it simple. For Deadpool's iconic white eyes, I'm just gonna glue on some sheer fabric on the inside. It does a good job of masking the person's eyes when it's on from the viewer, while at the same time not obstructing your view too much. I also took a fine tip Sharpie marker and ran it on the inside of the seam edges so that it stands out a little better. This is such a good base. You could definitely go and convert it into your favorite superhero or make a custom build of your own. I'd love to see it, and if you do, tag me in your post so I can admire your creativity.
And we are finished. Here is the end result. Overall, I'm pretty pleased with the way it turned out. The few modifications that I had to make were pretty simple, like pushing this out and then adding the stitching. I made that pattern for the eyes so that I could transfer it to both sides to make it even and give me a place to put the stitching on. But overall, not too terribly hard. I have also made the Deadpool's, the mutant inhibitor collar that they wear in one of the movies, the second one. You could definitely throw that with this and make yourself a pretty awesome costume. I'm probably going to use this template pretty soon. I found something from the late 90s. 1997 is when the movie for this superhero came out. It was a comic that I was pretty into as a kid. A little bit more dark of a storyline, but definitely something that was pretty cool. That's your hint for the upcoming that we'll use this for. But maybe you'll try and make one of these yourselves and impress your friends with your ability to modify a template and turn it into something else and hopefully make it something super cool that's relatively close to what the character actually looks like. Maybe. Maybe you'll get some.
Yay!
And inevitably, they're going to ask you, how'd you make that? You can give them one of these, tell them, much props. I didn't realize at the time, but this bump is so it fits the man bun, which is perfect. So snug. Yeah. Peace out.
If you enjoy what I do here on YouTube and want to continue to see more builds like this one, please consider joining the people listed here with me over on Patreon to build a bigger, better, more creative community together.